Hi, my name's Nick Best and I'm Managing Director here at Astranti. I'm also the person that's recorded all of our tuition videos on the Operational Case Study exam. That's over 10 hours of video guiding you through the maze that is the Operational Case Study, showing you exactly what you need to do, how you need to approach it in order to pass the exam. And this is just one clip from that. It relates to the various different competencies that you need to achieve to pass and how the scoring of the exam is undertaken, the kind of how the percentage leads through to a final score out of 150. So I'll leave you to this little sample. So the pass mark is 60%. It's a high pass mark. That's a tough pass mark to get, and this exam is supposed to be a challenging exam, and it's supposed to challenge you to both get marks for the theory but start to apply those marks to a practical situation. And we start to see that coming up in some of the areas of the syllabus. It's not just the technical skills, it's actually applying it to the people and leadership and business as we break that down. Let me just, before I go through those in detail, let me just give you a little bit of a caveat on the 60%. That 60% is the way the marker will mark. They'll mark out of 100 and they'll be looking for a certain percentage. Let's say you've got 60% in the day of the exam. What they'll then do, CIMA then look at the various different variants, the various different sets of exams, of the 5 sets that they set. And they'll look at the easier ones and the harder ones, and then apply an adjusting factor. And so as not to confuse the percentage you got in your exam with the final result, is they just apply that and then they make the whole thing out of 150. And what they do is they set it so that what would be 60% of a normal way of marking it equates to 80 out of 150 in terms of what they give you on your result slip in the day of the exam. So in your result slip on the day of the exam, you're looking for a mark over 80. Okay, but that equates to 60%. Now, a few people have said, well, hang on, 80 out of 150 is 53%, not 80%. Yeah, that 80 out of 150 is not supposed to be anything to do with percentages. It's a mark. It's 80 out of 150. It's not a percentage mark, and it's not the percentage mark. CIMA are trying to get away from that adjusted mark being anything to do with percentages. The pass mark is a 60% pass mark, as will be adjusted for the factor that will apply it up to their final grade that they give you out of 150. Okay, so when you're preparing your exam, plan on making up to 60 points in order to pass. That's your goal. Just bear in mind that when you get the results, your result is out of 150 and you're looking for something out of 80. It's just to do with the system of adjustments that they make. Okay, so that said then, let's take a look at some of the different elements. The biggest part of this syllabus at the OCS exam is the technical skills. I suppose this shouldn't really be a surprise to us. How you've learned a whole range of material and now you have to use that material, but the key being is that you're using that theory to apply that to the exam and the exam scenario in a written form, as opposed to just answering a range of multiple choice questions. Primarily then this 64% is theoretically based, but should you get a question which you think, yeah, that's definitely a technical question, okay, you've looked at the requirements, and we'll show you in later on how to identify what types of questions come under which heading. And you've identified this as a technical question, but don't just think, okay, all I've got to do is do my theory for this. If you can then apply that to the unseen, the information you're given in the exam, or even the pre-seen information, you should do that. If you can apply it to the business and its position, its strategy, or you can give a good industry example and use your industry knowledge, you should do that as well. But all of those marks will all be incorporated in the technical skills element if it's a technical skills question. Then another sub-requirement will be allocated to business skills. As you can see, there won't be as many of these sub-requirements because the total business skills is just 16%. And the idea of business skills is to say, how well can you apply your business knowledge, your business acumen? You can apply to the scenario, but crucially, quite a lot of E1 comes into this. So the technical skills is a lot of F1 and P1, whereas the business skills is a lot of E1, and as indeed actually are parts of people skills and leadership skills. So you broadly get the mix between these, that your P1 and F1 are done under technical, and then your E1 is done under the other three headings. That's a very, very rough guide, but that's typically the way it is. So business skills then is about applying to the business's position, and making sure that you are using your technical knowledge, but using it with the business in mind. Next is people skills. Now under people skills, we're looking at issues such as communication, and ethical issues always get categorized under the people-based skills, and ethics comes into every CIMA subject, and so it's quite possible that you'll see an ethical element to a question. Well, that tends to then be under people skills. Anything to do with stakeholders. Of course, stakeholders are people, the people with an interest in the business, and so if you've got anything to do with different stakeholders and stakeholder needs, that comes under the people skills element. Finally, leadership skills is only 6%. Now, in actual fact, in the actual CIMA syllabus, neither E1, P1 or F1 actually have specific topics that come under leadership skills, which seems a bit odd then that we'd get 6% then in this exam. Now, typically what CIMA want to start doing, because that leadership skills percentage goes up as you go from OCS to MCS at the management level, and then SCS at the strategic level, until leadership is equivalent to all of the others. Obviously when you get to strategic level, you're supposed to be a leader, influencing and controlling the organisation, managing the organisation, providing really strong advice and clear recommendations. But they just want to start you off with some leadership skills requirements at this level, but just a starting point for those. And that's where this comes in. So the typical type of leadership skills question will be asking you about something to do with influencing or change management, or maybe asking you to do a brief recommendation at the end of a longer requirement. And those are where your leadership skills are going to come from showing that you are able to provide good, strong management advice. Okay, but a relatively small part, to be fair, in this exam. Okay, one other thing you need to be aware of, as well as getting that 60% pass mark, in the top 3 of those criteria, you also have to get 1/3 of the marks in order to pass the whole exam. And so, for example, if we took people skills, and in fact business skills, which is pretty much the same percentage, 1/3 of those marks, let's say we take people skills, which is 14, well, 1/3 of that comes just below 5. So effectively, you will need to get 5 people skills marks in order to pass the exam, and you'll need to get 5 business skills marks in order to pass the exam. So you need to get 1/3 of the marks. Now, that does not apply to leadership skills. It's such a small percentage that CIMA feel it's unfair to ask you to definitely get 2 leadership skills. You could actually get 0 leadership skills and still pass the whole exam. Okay, but you definitely need to have 5 people in business skills marks and a 1/3 of the technical skills marks. So what's that? It's about 21, isn't it? Technical skills marks. So you've got to get 1/3 of the marks in those areas, and then 60% overall. Now, what does that mean for you? That means that you must balance each of those criteria. What you must not do is think, oh, I know this particular question. It's on a subject I know really well, and I'm going to write all I know on that and do that really, really well, and then not do that second sub-requirement because I'm really not sure about that. The problem is that second sub-requirement might be one of the ones allocated to people skills, and let's say it's the only one allocated to people skills, and you just leave it out completely. Do you know what? You've just failed the exam. So you must give an answer for every separate sub-requirement. Okay, and that means you must also manage your time well, so that you leave yourself a reasonable amount of time. You are better with a fair answer on everything than you are a brilliant answer in one section and a poor answer in another. Okay, so those are how the marks are allocated in this exam. Okay, so we'll leave that sample there. The whole video series goes over 10 hours, and we look at the exam, what you need to pass. we have a look at, I've got a number of videos for you where we've got various different commentaries from the examiner. We've got the examiner herself telling us what she thinks you need to do to pass. We've got her exam reports that guide you in terms of each sitting, what people have done well and what they haven't done so well. I've actually got my guide to how you go about writing, how you go about planning, how you go about structuring your answer. Very, very crucially, how you go about looking at the requirement and answering all parts of the requirement, because that's a big failure according to the examiner. So it's a comprehensive video series to show you how to pass. You also get that video series if you join our full course, in which case you also get mock exams, our guide to ethics and how to pass ethics questions, which are really common in this particular exam. You get master classes included, live master classes, and a whole range of other resources. So please do check out the whole course if you're considering to decide whether or not it's just the tuition videos or it's the whole course that's going to suit you best. Whatever you decide to do and however you decide to approach your exam, I do wish you the best of luck.